Today we mark 1,000 days of war in Ukraine against Russian imperial ambitions mutated in all-out Russian criminal aggression against Ukraine and international law and order. And we also talk about new red line of Russia, new Kremlin's nuclear deterrence policy, whatever that means. And we discuss all that and more with an expert from Good Politics, Sensei Maxim Jegun. So, good afternoon. These topics in more detail. My name is Henry Keane and we are UATV English, bringing you the hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. 1,000 days, 24,000 hours and counting. Hours, minutes, seconds that changed our lives forever. Ukraine will never be the same, and there is no point for me to even try to explain the feeling of a father of three who lost his wife and all of his children. The feeling of a family member who lost a family member. A mother who lost both children. A child whose mother was shred to pieces by Russian missile debris. A soldier who lost both of his legs and arms. How do I even explain that? What should I say? I can hope for your compassion, of course. I can hope for a tear falling from your eye. I can curse Putin, the Kremlin, Russia and Russians. And I did that 1,000 times during this 1,000 days. Today, I want to say something else. Something that may be perceived as being rude, but it's not. It's just the truth. We in Ukraine don't have extra time for excessive emotions today. Way more than warming compassion and empathy of the world, we in Ukraine are craving something else. Your clear, pragmatic mind.
My belief is that we have come to a point where it is fair to say that the strategy of the way that we helped Ukraine during the 3-year period, almost 1,000 days, has failed. A peace through de-escalation is a failing and failed strategy. We need a new one. We need a strategy that would come from strength. The same strategy that has been asked by Baltic states, by Ukraine itself, by others who really support Ukraine, that we need strength. And when I'm talking strength, I'm talking weapons, I'm talking about real removal of all restrictions and actually a winning strategy. From the winning strategy, we could come to a point where all the phone calls, everything would actually make sense, because now they don't. Because we are still in the de-escalation strategy mode, and that has failed. So I'm hopeful that we can put a stop end to this and really come back with the new strength, with the new administrations to this situation and find an actual solution and an actual support to Ukraine that would help Ukraine win.
It is indeed a relief to see that after 1,000 days, the world finally is changing its excruciatingly hypocrite non-interference attitude and quits this de-escalation rubbish. But let's not forget that for Ukrainians, the war did not start in 2022. The conflict in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region began in 2014. In fact, before 2022, the terrible humanitarian situation in eastern Oblast of Ukraine was considered a forgotten crisis. And in a sense, such an openly criminal, direct, full-scale invasion helped the world to realize what is going on in Ukraine: Russian genocide of all that is Ukrainian: culture, language, historical heritage, people. In 2025, it is estimated that 5 million people will face food insecurity. In Ukraine, it is down from 11 million, of course, in 2023, and even 7 million in 2024. We say a great thank you for that to the European humanitarian missions and United Nations and volunteering individuals who help us standing until this very day. Yet, the humanitarian situation on the ground remains critical, with conditions worsening in frontline regions and the harsh winter approaching. In 2024, the United Nations estimated that 14.6 million Ukrainians, almost 40% of the country's population, will still need humanitarian assistance, and that means that in 2025, millions of Ukrainians will continue to be dependent on humanitarian aid. The need ranges from across all sectors, like access to water and hygiene, healthcare, shelter, psychological support and more. So please, don't forget, 1,000 days of war and counting, as the war is now. And Ukraine needs not only bandages to treat the bleeding, we need a sword to deter the enemy that causes them, and we got it for now. United States has lifted the ban on Ukraine using long-range missiles to fire into Russian territory by permitting them to be used against Russian and North Korean troops in the Kursk region. The United States will allow Ukraine to use US-made ATACMS, missiles which have range of 300 kilometers, a decision being justified by the presence of North Korean troops fighting alongside Russia against Ukraine. It was not Joe Biden who lifted the restrictions, and not some son of a Trump that would have cast them back if only he could. It is not one influential person or a handful of them in the United States of America. It were not Democrats who imposed restrictions and not Republicans who lifted them, giving us a chance to fight back for the first time in 3 years, to hit militarily legit targets, military airfields and depots, and not civilian cities as night as Putin does in Ukraine. So, who, after all, did lift the restrictions, then, if not Biden or anyone else? America did. The America. The country that was, is, and always will be great because of a great nation that lives there in a great diversity of views, cultures, and beliefs that altogether compile into a core human value, freedom. And that is what Ukraine is fighting for in this war for 1,000 days in a row, freedom. And that is why America is great, because its people are free. And Ukraine is craving the same. America is great not because someone reshaped good old Reagan's slogan, but because of a great diversity of sometimes controversial views and opinions that oppose each other and from time to time enjoy winning over one another. And we in Ukraine stand for exactly that kind of greatness. As America is great because it takes great hardships for you to face along the way to earn America's great respect. And we in Ukraine like to think that in 1,000 days walking a fiery path of this war paved with pain and loss, Ukrainians prove themselves worthy of such a respect from a great America. And we hope that when Ukrainians say, "God bless America," Americans would feel quite appropriate to answer with, "Glory to Ukraine." Russian dictator Vladimir Putin approved updated principles of Russia's nuclear deterrence policy according to a dictatorial decree published on a government site. It is a new red line, as all others has been crossed by Ukraine, as you know, many times and nothing ever happened. So the brand new revised red nuclear line now outlines scenarios that could justify Putin's going nuclear. And Russians are okay with that. Of course, why not? After all, the boss knows what he's doing.
We, as martyrs, will go to heaven, and they will all simply die. Vladimir Putin, President of Russia.
New Russian red line imply that a nuclear strike could follow after, I quote, Russian dictator. Now, aggression against the Russian Federation and its allies by a non-nuclear state with the support of a nuclear state and large-scale non-nuclear attacks such as those carried out with drones. End of dictator's quote. Translated from Putin's language to English, that means a nuclear war of destruction whenever Putin says so, whoever Putin says against. So Putin first proposed changes to the nuclear doctrine during the last Russian Security Council meeting on nuclear deterrence. He claimed that Russia does not need a preventive strike as part of its nuclear doctrine, I quote the man again, because in a retaliatory strike the enemy will be guaranteed to be destroyed. End of quote. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said this is a signal that warns the West of the consequences if they take part in the attack on our country by various means, not necessarily nuclear. Since launching its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Russia has repeatedly issued nuclear threats against Ukraine and the West. Saying repeatedly, these threats have failed to materialize ever, and Russia continues to wage its all-out war without using its nuclear arsenal. What the new Russian nuclear strategy means in easy terms is Putin shows his wrinkled fist to the West and calls it a new nuclear deterrence strategy. Few in the West care, of course, but what really amazes me in all this Russian nuclear fisting is that a show-off is not even somewhat addressed to the West. It is a 300% domestic audience-orientated in Russia show that requires 0% actual effort with negligibly small percent of investment in comparison with the cost of Putin's criminal war, of course, which makes up around 40% of the whole Russian budget, by the way. And even so, it is totally enough for Putin to become a great hero for a vast majority of Russians, even of those Russians living in Europe and America, as these people seriously believe that Russia is defending its borders in Ukraine. And that actually is true. If we consider, of course, what Putin himself once said aloud and publicly, Russian borders never end. Maxim Jigon, as usually expert from the good politics, is with us. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I believe you are in your car because of the power outages. Is that right, Maxim?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And thank you for having me today.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. Let's do it as fast as possible. Long range restrictions lifted. Thank God it's good, but what weapons, namely, and what's the new range, so to say?
Yeah, as we understand, we received this opportunity to get a 300 kilometers ATACMS systems that will allow Ukraine to share our love to Russia on their territories and to hit different Russian military facilities in their regions, which will allow us to feel more freely in context of defending our territories. And I think that's amazing news from our American partners. And I believe that at the same time we will get the same decisions from our European friends. And it will depend also, of course, not only on the allowances by itself, but on the actually rockets that will allow us to hit these facilities in Russian territory.
Your language, I like the facilities you say. You probably mean military depots and airfields with military aircraft on it. And I also like you say, send Ukrainian love to Russia with American ATACMS, which is nice. Yeah, why not? But you also mentioned European friends. Maxim, German Tauruses in Ukraine. How likely you think this is going to happen? Do you think this is going to happen?
Unfortunately, I don't think that there is any chance of getting these allowances from current Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz. And I believe that next year we'll get a new, probably, Chancellor of Germany. The representatives of German opposition are more interested in giving us different kinds of rockets and other military instruments in this war. And it looks like current government of Germany loses its level of support from German people. And I think that one of the reasons why this government will be replaced by another one is actually the topic of Russia-Ukrainian war. And as we can see from the context of different sayings and different speeches by German opposition, they are interested in finalizing this war, not on the conditions of Russia, but on Ukrainian conditions. And I think that this question will play a crucial role in the upcoming elections, which are expected to be held on February 23 next year.
Right, and I couldn't agree more because me myself, coming from Germany, I mean, I lived for years there, and I know someone who knows Friedrich Merz, and I'm absolutely sure that this is a positive sign for Ukraine. You're right, but the ban, the restriction, long-range weapons restriction, was lifted because of what exactly? Do you think? Is it Biden that leaves, Trump that arrives, North Korea attacks? What was the last straw that broke Bull's back? Why now?
You know, I think that during the almost 3 years of this war, we have gone through many limits from our foreign allies, starting from the using of tanks, American or European, and the decision to provide us with this instrument like tanks was part of negotiations with Russia from American and European colleagues who just tried to, to make Putin work in another direction and to not escalate against Ukraine, but it didn't work. And we received these American tanks and the European tanks. After that, we had another level of negotiations regarding F-16 and other probably other aircrafts that Ukraine will receive in the nearest future. And there was also part of negotiations with Russia, and it was another try to de-escalate the situation from a Russian side. It didn't work again, and I think the decision to give us these allowances for using American and other Western rockets on Russian territory was part of negotiations after Russia started once again their hits of Ukrainian and energy infrastructure, their engagement of Northern Korean soldiers on Russian territories as well. And after we received enough proofs that Northern Korean soldiers are on the territory of Kursk Oblast already, and after we received another attack of Russian rockets on Ukrainian energetic system, I think that it was the last argument for American President Joe Biden and probably for Emmanuel Macron and for Keir Starmer in Great Britain to change their position regarding all these opportunities for Ukrainian side. At the same time, I don't think it was timely. I don't think it was in proper moment. So I'm pretty sure that if we got these allowances like 6 months ago or a year ago, we wouldn't be at this stage of this war. We wouldn't lose Ukrainian territories every day, and we would be in a better conditions for possible negotiations, especially taking into account that a new president is about to take his power in the beginning of next year. So all these delays, they are worth Ukrainian lives of Ukrainian soldiers, of Ukrainian territories, and of course lots of money, not only of Ukrainian taxpayers, but also of our foreign partners. And that's the money from their budgets they need to use for the stabilization of Ukrainian financial system and giving us opportunities in a military way.
A very detailed and a very concrete answer, if you ask me. You mentioned the new administration in the United States of America. So, son of a Trump, whatever his name is, said that his father would now have to deal with, nonetheless, World War III consequences because ban is lifted. And while Ukrainians were dying, it was not an escalation and all was good. But now, when Russians will be slapped back in their faces, and they will be, trust me on that, all is bad for any son of Trump. So, do you think that Donald Trump, the daddy, will do his son a present when back to the Oval Office and impose the ban back? Do you think it's possible that the America will lift the ban back from us?
Yeah, I think that's actually possible, and I think that one of the reasons why Joe Biden also lifted the ban was his desire to put Donald Trump in absolutely different conditions when he will have to deal in this Russian-Ukrainian war. And taking into account that previous speeches by Trump were connected with his wish to end this war as soon as possible and in any possible way without necessarily taking into account Ukrainian needs, that means that all the tries and all the work which was done by current American administration of the president will be just smashed. It will not. It will not take taken into account by new administration, and that's why Joe Biden wanted Donald Trump to live in another reality in context of this war. but at the same time, we understand that Donald Trump can behave in absolutely different ways, starting from making Ukraine sit together with Russia near one table and negotiate in the condition we have right now, or on the other hand, he could help Ukraine to get a better position in these negotiations and make Ukraine more powerful and have more arguments in context of possible negotiations. So I think it will depend mostly on the first public communication between American president and the Russian dictator Putin.
Couldn't agree more, Maxim. Thank you so very much for your effort. Maxim is again coming online from your car because of the massive power outages all over Ukraine and the Kiev just as well. Thank you, and we hope to talk to you soon. So,
Thank you.
goodbye. That was it for tonight. My name is Henry Keane. We are UATV English, doing our best to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Please don't be shy. Like, share, and comment. Your voice matters as it helps the voice of Ukraine to be heard globally. Stay safe and tune for more. Goodbye.